All right, people, welcome in. Here it is another edition of the Happy Hour Tip-Off Show, powered by WagerTalk.com. I'm Joe Raineri, SportsGrid.com, joined by a couple of just monsters when it comes to handicapping college hoops. Guys, Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, Drew Martin, SportsMemo.com. Make sure you guys are following the scroll below, too, by the way. Absolute monster opportunity for you to take advantage of every one of Drew's plays for the next, 30 days at sportsmemo.com, including any handicapper, in fact, at sportsmemo.com. JR210, $210. You get the whole damn month and any capper you want for $210. You can't go wrong there. Sportsmemo.com. All right, guys, we had a very interesting night, to say the least. Couple of, by the way, you owe me some Mai Tais. We'll get to that in a minute, Ralph. But upsets last night.
No, I thought.
No, don't be changing that shit in the middle of it. I don't want to hear it, man.
Our bet was regulation, so it went over.
Regulation, my ass. I don't even want to hear Bob making it up.
I'm a soccer fan. I bet a draw, so there was no action.
I can't.
Regulation only.
Yeah. See what you missed, Drew? See what you missed on the show yesterday? Already, he's reneging on it. I love it. We'll get to that game. But there was some upset. Big card tonight. Over 40 games on the board tonight. Big matchups. We'll get to those marquee. But let's take a look at some of those upsets last night. In fact, here, fellas. And we'll start with the one at the top that a lot of people are still talking about here this morning, Ralph. Penn State, Michigan State. It seems like, I think it was Paterno was still there the last time I think Penn State won in Michigan State. It's been a long, long time. But Michigan State, wow. Just when you think they turn a corner, Ralph, they throw up all over themselves, which is pretty much what they did at the end of that game there yesterday.
Yeah, I did not read the last time they lost. So I'm looking real quick to see if there was a Michigan State loss at home. 2009, February 1st, 2009, Michigan State was a 12.5-point favorite. They lost that game 72-68. So, again, we knew Penn State was a legitimate team. We knew Penn State has a top 20 defense. Could they go on the road and handle a physical team? Well, they didn't do it against Minnesota, and they didn't do it against Rutgers, but they did do it against Michigan State. So hats off to them. Pat Chambers has his team playing well, and they got a couple guys that they can go to. You got a team with a couple sophomores and a junior, and Lamar Stevens leading the way, and it's exciting. I'm happy for the Rutgers and Penn State fans, and we just don't have that same group of teams at the top of the order.
Yeah, Drew, last night I know Tennessee fans are excited too. I got to tell you, and if you notice, there's a theme there with all of these upsets last night. Every one of them was an away team. But Alabama I don't know what to make. I mean, you're an SEC guy there, Drew, and Alabama pretty much in every metric pretty much was the better team than Tennessee, except when it came to, the final score there. They took care of business in the first half, and this seems to be a thing with Alabama where they get like these double-digit leads in the first half, and then they can't close out. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe, and good morning to you guys. Talking about Alabama, man, they are an up-and-down team, no doubt about it. They surprised a lot of people out the gate, especially in conference play, knocking off the War Eagles in the Iron Bowl on the hardwood. But now, 3 straight losses for Alabama. They're probably on the outside looking in when it's talking about March Madness tournament. And on the other side of this, hats off to Tennessee. Rick Barnes and company, a lot of people counted them out. Maybe not. They're a pretty talented team, Joe, and might make their way in and grab a ticket here to March Madness.
Yep. And, Ralph, which one of these Cleveland teams here surprised you most last night, Toledo or Miami, Ohio?
Well, I just tweeted something about Toledo, Joe, and, I was just playing around in the database. Toledo has lost 4 straight games as a favorite.
Wow.
It's only happened 12 times since 2017 that someone has lost back-to-back games. FYI, Toledo plays on Saturday. Those 12 teams that lost 4 straight as a favorite ended up going 2-10 against the spread. So there's not a bounce back if you're playing that poorly as the better team.
Yeah, and taking a look here at some of the more, shall we say, Impressive ATS covers, totals there. Late game there last night. The Degenerate Special here. This is one of, you guys will learn, this is one of Drew's favorite parts of the college basketball schedule. Anything that starts after 11 o'clock Eastern time, Drew's all over it. Nevada taking on Air Force there. Drew, what'd you think of this game last night? 25-point cover, damn.
Put it in last second with our friend Andrew McGinnis there at Sports Grid, and the Degenerate Special cashes. Nevada coming in. You know, they're a really talented team, and I took this away from the game. Air Force is just up against it, man. You got some unathletic white guys out there on the court, and they're just kind of getting beat off the dribble a lot. So Air Force isn't a team that I'm looking to back, especially against the better teams in the Mountain West. Talk about a huge cover. Nevada was definitely the side last night, Joe.
Ralph,
I can say, for our longtime viewers, you guys know, if we have the wrong side up on these largest covers, we talk about it.
Right.
I am happy to announce that I had 2 plays yesterday, and they were Nevada and Georgia Tech, both among the top 3 covers. So, hey, a rarity. And part of the reason I was on Nevada was this. They had an injury, so they were missing a player too. But Air Force has the largest home-road dichotomy in college basketball. The difference between their home numbers and their road numbers are huge. And again, they're a team to look to play on at home, but certainly fade on the road.
Yeah, let's talk about this. The under. Now, this is a game we covered here, Ralph, yesterday on the show. We were not Duke. We looked at that number. You came up with a great stat regarding revenge in BC last night, and it was 13.5, 14 points. It seemed like an awful lot. It was primed for a letdown with Duke, and man, I just didn't expect the score to be so low. I mean, minus, almost 30 points under the total, Ralph, was a little crazy.
Agreed. That has something to say with Boston College. They knew they had to slow the game down. Boston College, normally a team that plays much more up-tempo, but, when you're the inferior team, you want to try to play less. I mean, listen, both teams shot fine from 2-point. They shot 48 and 48. But the reason it went under, 3 of 33 combined. Oh. Duke was 1 of 15 from 3-point land. Boston College, 2 of 18. So I don't know how many times you're only going to have 3 made 3-pointers with 33 attempts.
Yeah, you know what that sounds? That sounds like a Houston Rockets game right there is what it sounds like. So let's take a look at some of these performances here. Last night, and Jalen Harris, really, for Nevada there is a guy that steps out. Drew, you watching this game last night. This kid drops 38 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals. You can't get much more of an all-around performance than what this kid did last night.
No, he's a next level guy in my opinion, Joe. He's gonna get a shot in the association, and a lot of it was in transition. Those 2 steals. I'm actually surprised that isn't more on the defensive side. He was making plays, and we see it in the rebounds. 6. I actually, just from watching the game, I thought he'd have more rebounds and steals, but overall, getting out in transition, scoring a lot of points, man. Near 40 points in college basketball is impressive.
Yeah, let's talk about a guy in a losing effort here, Ralph. Would have been on a team you picked last night there with the Razorbacks, Arkansas. I, of course, was on Auburn, and I do believe there was certainly a few drinks coming my way with umbrellas in it, but still, the kid Mason Jones, amazing job last night. They got some talent on Arkansas. They should have won that game and closed it out, but they didn't, unfortunately. They gave Auburn an opportunity to come back, and that's exactly what they did.
Clearly you have one team in Auburn that has an experienced head coach who's been there and done that. You have another team in Auburn with a first-year head coach learning new systems and a couple sophomores on the team, and the experience rose. So, like I said, I wish you would have won in regulation so I could pay you your bet. But
you listening? You're listening to this, Drew, right?
Like we know that anytime there's a beer bet involved and the game goes into overtime, although it cashes in casinos, the gentleman bet on the happy hour tip-off is like a draw. So
making this shit up to go along doesn't matter. But congratulations, Auburn. Job well done. But we've got plenty more of a 40 tonight, guys, on the card. some really great matchups. We'll get to a couple of marquee ones in a minute. But like you guys know that have followed the show, and if you're new to the show, we like to talk a little TNA here for the next minute or so. Ralph comes up with a couple of trends or angles of the day here associated with these games that might pique your interest. So what'd you come up with here today, Ralph?
Well, some of these teams just keep popping up. Fullerton now 1-12 ATS at home, and I believe they were 0-12. Yeah, they are off a win. So now this is what I want to point out. I can tell you a 1-12 record, but now you have to pay attention. They beat Northridge. Does this turn it where the streak stops, or was it a one-game anomaly? And that's what you have to decide when the angles start changing. Florida, we know how disappointing the Gators have been. 4-18 at home, their last 22. NC State 1-11 over/under, really slowing down the pace. Indiana State, it seems like everyone in the Missouri Valley is an under team. 4-17 over/under at home. George Washington 0-8-1 over/under on the road. And Hartford 10-1-1 at home. I just did tweet this out. They're not on the road tonight. They're on the road Saturday. Mm-hmm. There's only one team that has a perfect ATS record on the road this season, and that is Winthrop at 12-0 against the spread.
Interesting. Couple of movers here, guys, that I've been following since early this morning, and one of the biggest movers that I watched is an interesting game. It's one that I know a lot of people are going to be looking at, and it is Seton Hall on their way back here, guys, taking on Georgetown tonight. Now, Miles Powell, we love Miles, right? But Miles scored 9 points in an atrocious game against Xavier there over the weekend, his worst game yet. And, of course, they lost at home, but now they have an opportunity to head to Georgetown. They have played really well against Georgetown. They've kind of owned this series as of late here. Guys, but the line moved. It opened up at like a point and a half. It's up to 3.5 in a lot of places. I get the move. The question is, Ralph, do you agree with it?
Well, the problem is, the injuries.
Yeah.
You've got potential injuries on both sides.
Yep.
McClung is downgraded to doubtful, and then Quincy McKnight. Yep. Who it really is. I mean, he's their point guard. Besides Powell, he is their team. That I am not going to play a Seton Hall game. That you would think, you look at it, you think, oh, McKnight missed last game as much as Powell struggled. That Powell had to go and play much more guard, but he didn't. But when Knight out, that's going to put Powell in a guard position. He's going to score less. So. The injuries just keep me off. Seton Hall to me is clearly the better team on paper, but there's certain players hurt. Like last night, Georgia Tech was missing a player. Nevada was missing a player. I'm not worried about missing a player. Right. I'm worried about missing a senior point guard that's going to force Powell to be in a different position.
You got also, guys, another talk about on paper. And Drew, this is the thing that, those that might just be getting into handicapping college hoops now, is you look at Creighton, for instance, 17-5, ranked 21st in the country, taking on a Providence team who's 12-10, and you're going, well, I got a little number next to Creighton here. I don't have any little numbers next to Providence. However, this line opened up Creighton on the road -1. It's now -2 Providence. So it has flipped here since this morning. I don't know if you agree with it or not, but it's something novice bettors or bettors just getting into college hoops should be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring up the fact of a ranked team, going on the road. We've seen it in the past in college basketball. I know of late the numbers have kind of changed a little bit, but still, it is tough to go on the road in conference, come out with a win against a quality opponent. The market's showing us here that it will back a team like Providence in that profile. And Joe, talking about like what Ralph said, like last night, Georgia Tech had one of their best players out, if not their best player, but still playing well against quality opponents when at home. We've seen it time and time again in college basketball. And an important note here, I took a loss last night. I was on that under the Georgia Tech game. We got to remember, if a team's feeling it, shooting well, one team can carry it to the over. So you kind of got to watch out with that and not step in front of some of these teams that are hot from the field, trying to bet them under the total and trying to fade them. It works both ways, side and total.
You like the Friars move, Ralph?
I'm indifferent in the game. It's a team I have not had a good feeling on. So when I'm going through, my power ratings really have to be pretty far off for me to jump in on Providence. I've zigged when they've zagged, and vice versa.
Yep, yeah. And of course, guys, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up a total in Virginia. So if you like watching paint dry, have we got a game for you tonight here? Clemson taking on Virginia, Drew, and it opened up. I saw one place was really low, like 104.5. Some of it really was like the 105s, 106, a lot of places. But listen, it's creeping up, man. I see some 107, 107.5s here. How do you approach a team like Virginia with total? Because to me, I can only look totals. You got an 8-point spread, and you got a 107-point total here. So what do you do with in this situation? You agree with the upward tick?
No. Straight up, I'm not interested in betting the Wahoos over the total. If you're betting overs in Virginia games, over the long stretch, you've really taken it on the chin, Joe. I just think it's very difficult because you're going to watch long possessions, and it's not like Clemson's going to hurry it up on the other end. And usually, the more talented team is the team that controls pace, and if they're about the same talent, I would usually tend to go with the home team in terms of how the game is going to be dictated in terms of tempo. So, no, if you made me bet this game, Joe, and it's a tough one to bet, under, I would still go under, and I would use that extra basket, which when we talk about extra baskets, in a total that's 155, a point and a half doesn't make as much of a difference as it does here. So a push up from 105.5 to 107, it actually might create more value. I would look towards the under, although I haven't bet it.
Couple notes, guys.
Are you shocked that route that it went up?
Well, I'm looking at their season, guys, and just breaking it down real quick. When I sort Virginia's season by their totals, their lowest total of the year was 100 against Navy.
Okay.
And then they had a 103 against Purdue. When I look at their totals of 111.5 or less, they are actually 6-2 over under.
Wow.
When I look at their totals that are 115 or higher, they're 0-6 or 6-0 to the under. So the real low unders have gone over the total.
Makes sense.
When you get Virginia at a reasonable number, they have been going way under the total. So it is a little different Virginia team than last year. The defense is not the same caliber, missing a couple guys. And, it doesn't mean it can't be there by the end of the year. But, again, showing that I think we're accustomed to last year's team, and we're seeing that 7-2 to the over when we have the lowest of their totals.
Yeah, and Ralph, I saw you post a game or a stat, I believe, about Wofford a little bit earlier on Twitter here, and they've got a game with a monster move. Opened up at 138. They're taking on VMI. Opened up at 138, but that has since gone down to 134. So a big drop on the total. But Wofford is a team quietly all of a sudden putting together some decent numbers here this year.
Yeah, but I'm looking at Wofford now, and you look at who they've played. I'm just going through my notes from last night. On the road, they have been a very, very mediocre team. I actually lean VMI here because, you're looking at a team that's 1-7 their last 8 games against a team that's 7-2, and you think that, wow, it's clearly a team that I would like. But, again, going to what Joe, you and I talked about, you going to Ken Palm and looking at the SoCon games, Wofford has played the number 10 schedule, and VMI has played the number 2 schedule. So you've played a much more difficult schedule. And even though Wofford's defense is at a high level, I actually do lean with the Cadets in this game. Cadets, I should say.
We got two big marquee matchups here that we'll break down for you guys, and one of them we'll start in the Big Ten here, guys. And Drew, Iowa-Purdue is going to be – a lot of eyes are going to be on this game here tonight. Another Big Ten situation with Iowa on the road. Purdue, not necessarily an easy place to play, but it's one of these things where Purdue, now is the time. If you're going to get something done, now is the time to do it. And Iowa took a little step back here over the last week, but it's going to be a tough game, and it usually is. But all of a sudden last night with Penn State winning on the road, it was almost a fade situation for a little while with Big Ten teams. But -4 is the number. Purdue continuing to get a little bit of love here. The total is kind of back down a little bit, 134.5. But it's 4 points for Purdue, man. How do you like this game?
Yeah, this is a fascinating game in the Big Ten. I mean, two good coaches, Matt Painter and Fran McCaffrey. And I first would look at this, Joe, from a totals perspective. One, it's in contrasting styles here. Iowa's going to look to push it. Purdue's going to look to slow it down. Purdue's actually a 300 team in terms of pace, depending what numbers you want to go off of. One of the slowest in the country by the adjusted pace, the one that I normally pay attention to. And Iowa, a top 30 team, a top 50 team anyway, in terms of adjusted pace offensively. And when you talk about, this total and where it's going to land, I usually go with the more talented team, which would be Iowa. But at the same time, they're having to go on the road. And you kind of led into this in terms of like what Penn State was able to do last night in upsetting Michigan State. We might see that again here. This Purdue team at home, they are just 12-10, Joe. Now, a lot of people pointing towards a lot of Big Ten teams making the tournament, so sitting at just 12-10, it could be a very talented sleeper 12-10. But Iowa, at the same time, this is a strong Iowa team, a team that I believe can be cutting down the nets when it's all said and done. Yep. So I usually don't like to go against against that talented of a team. So it would be Iowa or pass, but since they are on the road and we've seen the troubles that has caused in the Big Ten, I might just stay away from this one. I haven't bet it as of now.
Wow, Purdue 7-2 against the number against Iowa in the last 9 meetings here. Something's got to give here tonight.
Well, Purdue's been a much better team in the past. They had some guy named Carson Edwards or something like that. He was pretty decent.
Overrated.
Drew with a strong statement talking about Iowa potentially cutting down the nets.
Yeah, twice he's made that statement now. Twice, yes.
My thought is this. This show, we're giving information. We're teaching people how to help them handicap. The number one reason I would not be on Purdue as a very small favorite is because they're number 332 in free throw percentage. Ooh. If Iowa is down 7 or 8 and they start going to the hack-a-shack, Purdue starts making 1 of 2 free throws, Iowa has a great chance to catch up. What I would like in this spot is, I think Iowa, Drew pointed out very precisely, the dichotomy in the tempos between very fast and very slow. Despite Iowa having multiple elite offensive players, I think they're going to struggle against the pace early. So I'm going to back Purdue in the first half. It takes the free throws out of play. There's no hack-a-shack at the end of the first half. I think Iowa will adjust slowly to the pace. I think Iowa, with their dynamic offensive weapons, will learn how to beat Purdue later in the game. But I'm going to give a slight lean to Purdue first half tonight.
Yeah, Mackey Arena seems to be a difference maker. And certainly in this series and in this matchup over the years, Iowa has not played well here. And Purdue, it really does seem to be the only place they can actually deliver on 18-2 in the last 20 home games. So it's I'm kind of with you in the first half. Give me Purdue here at a small number. I agree. Take all the rest of it out of there. They should be able to control it early on in this game. And, of course, then at the nightcap, another very interesting game, guys. A marquee matchup. A lot of people feel that now's the time for Butler. Villanova-Butler here tonight. And if you're ever going to do it, you got to start making a move at some point. They started out great, Ralph Butler. They've kind of come back to earth a little bit. They are a 2.5-point favorite in this one. 131 is a total. Villanova on the road. Who you backing in this one?
All right, well, I got a question for you. You're in Indianapolis tonight. Which game would you rather go see, Iowa, Purdue, or Villanova, Butler? Which one, Drew?
Probably Iowa, the Iowa game. I just want to see them in person, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm a closet Hawkeye fan.
That's exactly correct. They got to get used to it. That's all.
Drew, I want to jump back to that point. Have you bought a ticket yet for Iowa to win it all?
No. This year's a tough one. I think I'm kind of running with that phrase. They could cut down the nets because I literally think 20 teams can cut down the nets this year.
Yeah, fair enough.
They win tonight. You bet your ass I'm buying a ticket.
Yeah, well, you may lose value. Get it real quick. In this Butler game, I just. I don't know what the problem is with Butler. I mean, you have Kamar Baldwin, you have Tucker, you have a defense that's top 25, but to be 2-4 your last 6 games, and a home loss to Seton Hall is not bad, a home loss to Providence, an away loss to Villanova is not bad, but losing to DePaul on the road is bad, and losing to Providence at home is a game that you should have won. So I look at it and. Yeah, a lot of it is because Aaron Thompson missed 4 straight games, and he's the reason, you miss your point guard and you're playing a team like Villanova. Well, your other guards can't handle the pressure they put on you. So he's a question mark for me. And, I would do this. I think the number is very fair that if I'm tuning into the game and Aaron Thompson isn't playing, then I would be backing Villanova because what happens is Kamar Baldwin's their best offensive threat. Kamar Baldwin has to shift from shooting guard to point guard without Thompson in there. So if Thompson's playing, Butler has the offense to win the game. If Thompson's not playing and Baldwin has to be point, his offense to me gets negated.
What do you think here? It's a tough game. I mean, it really is because I don't know that I trust Butler in the spot, but I know they know it's 30 days left here. So like you got to start winning some of these Big East games.
Yeah, Butler's not a team that I've really been involved with a lot this year. I see that obviously of late they haven't been playing that well, but I'd go after this more from the Villanova side here. Talking about Villanova, one of the better teams in my opinion in the country. I think they're a little underrated right now. I have them circled as bet on, plus the fact they're coming off of a loss against Creighton at home. And this is a situation where fundamentally, I watched that game. I didn't see any changes other than Creighton just shot lights out from 3, 11 from 22. You take away that, I think that's a lot different game. So I think Villanova is really motivated here. We're getting 2 points with a really good Nova squad, Jay Wright squad. I have them as bet on. And talking about totals wise, Butler's not a team I've dug into much, but Ralph, what you're talking about in terms of point guard to shooting guard, that can really dictate pace in the change. I mean, have you noticed anything that they do slow down tempo-wise with that change from shooting guard to point guard?
I did not. I watched some of the Villanova game, but that's not a fair assessment because it was Villanova on the road, and that's when they put up 61. They came back and they played with Marquette. I mean, you played a faster tempo team in Marquette with Marcus Howard and you win that game in overtime, and then they slowed it down to Georgetown. So I'm sure if we look at possessions, I'm sure they're going to be down a few, but it's hard to tell when you're on offense, you're number 341 already. If you're one of the slowest ones, how much slower can you play?
Yep. Right. I was actually looking at it because they are so slow having the change. Sometimes they actually get faster, even though they're not as talented. Their pace will go up, so it might actually be value in and over. But I don't know if you noticed that though.
Yeah, I did not. The only game I saw in that 4-game stretch with them out was the game at Villanova, and that was a game that. By halftime they were down 10 or 11, and they just never could make a run in the second half.
I'll tell you this though, Drew. It appears that the Butler Villanova game is one of the most is the heavily bet game on the card so far, and you got 70. We're talking about 70% in both tickets and money to the over, but it is frozen at 131. So it does appear that. Maybe the sharp money is keeping this thing down where they are backing the under in this one between Villanova and Butler. Listen, got 2 good defensive teams. I mean, they're 2 teams that pride themselves on defense, and Butler is just not in good form. So it would be it would almost have to be a dog play for me too, where you might actually consider it for our dog of the day here, which we'll go ahead and kind of lay out a couple right now, guys, before our best bets tonight. Villanova, Ralph, you got to consider them a dog in this spot, getting 2.5 points. Not a big dog, but they are definitely live tonight in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to argue with that. I mean, there's some guy here yesterday that gave out Ohio State, and he said, Ralph, you're going to tell me WTF, and I told you WTF.
Where is that guy? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, OSU. It wouldn't be, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen last night, and it. Thank you very much for the flagrant foul there at the end. That was great, Big Ten officials. Thank you very much for that. But same thing.
Yeah, no, I am going to go with Bradley against Drake, and this game was close to making my card. And I'll tell you that one thing happened that was strong enough to keep it away from a play for me. And again, this is just another note for people new to basketball betting. You know, it is better to leave a loser off your card. It's better to leave a winner off your card than put a loser on. Because if you're putting 2 games on just to bet them and you're splitting, you're paying that 10%. You know, have some discipline and just if the game is a play it. If there's any question, leave it off. And again, while Bradley was very close to being a play, the reason I left it off was that Drake just got their 15-game home win streak snapped in a loss to Southern Illinois. And they did not play poorly against Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois absolutely shot the lights out. They made 13 of 23 pointers. They made 20 of 26 free throws. So Drake played well, but had their home streak snapped. And I don't want to play against that team in that mindset with the next game after snapping that streak. So I like Bradley as a small best bet, but I can tell you it's not making my card as one of my top 3 plays of the day for that reason.
Love that. All right, so talk to me, Drew. Where you got a dog or something on the board here that you've circled?
Yeah, if we're doing dogs, I can jump in there with Villanova, one of the best, if not the best, free throw shooting team in the country, catching 2.5 in the game we just talked about. Yep. I think Villanova, wrong team favored here. A watch and win opportunity. Fox Sports 1 primetime on the East Coast. I think Villanova plus the 2 in the hook. That's the side I like, and I'm going to bet it for a small amount right now.
And you know what? If you're jumping in with Drew's play, guys, it does tip off at 6:30, a half an hour early. I love Fox Sports getting that extra half hour, but don't miss the tip-off by thinking it's a 7 o'clock start.
Great point. Every sports bettor out there knows what you're talking about, Ralph. I've made that mistake many times, and it's a bad feeling.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I'm torn here between certainly when looking at a dog here, Ralph, and part of me is looking at let me just make sure if there's a line move, but part of me is looking right down the road for me here, the University of Miami at home, Ralph, getting 3.5, 4 points against NC State, who is just absolutely abysmal. You talk about current form. Listen, Miami is not great. I get that, but them getting 3.5, 4 points at home, they're 1-5 in their last 6, but at home, they've been a tough out here, and NC State has got absolutely nothing going for them right now. They have not scored, I don't think, more than, what, they have really had a hard...
They scored 80 against Miami, and they haven't scored 65 against North Carolina. That's it.
No more than 60 in the last 4 or 5. So it's been a rough go from them. They're having a really hard time. I'm looking at the under in this, which I like. But I think Miami at home, 4-1 in their last 5 at home, 6-2-1 against the number in their last 9 at home, especially against teams that are below 500. I'm looking at Miami going, this is, you want to give me 4 points? You're NC State. Hell yeah, give me the 4 points, Ralph. I'll back Miami.
Yeah, again, you can't argue with it. You've had a good read on Miami. They've been that up and down team, and you've talked on the show numerous times how they really play to the level of their competition, and when they're playing someone they can beat, they can be competitive. But when they are overmatched, they can get the doors kicked in.
Yeah, especially at home. It's a good opportunity for them. And I know we didn't. I don't know, Drew. Is there a total on the board that you circled tonight that you like?
I wanted to bring up a total to you guys. One, that Miami game, I'm leaning towards the under, but even a kind of a more interesting move here. We have Ken Palm's numbers with LSU and Vanderbilt tonight, pointing at 156, and we're seeing pretty much across the board a 10-point drop in the market, and you don't see that very often, especially at this point in the season with so much data behind it. It's now as low watermark now 146, so that's a 10-point drop here, and it's really because Vanderbilt last 6 of 7 all under the total since their best player went out. They have been a strong under team. I just worry that it's too much of a move here because LSU's the more talented team, a team that's going to be playing in March Madness, a top 25 team, going up against Vanderbilt. I know they're on the road in the Music City, Nashville, a great stadium there, but still, it's just too much of a move here. I would be careful stepping in front of this 146 number. If LSU goes out and flirts with 100 points, you can kiss that under goodbye. So I just think we're getting in kind of rarefied air with a 146 here.
Drew, I could tell you this: the LSU offense, number 6 efficiency, and the funny thing is, they're fast, but they're not Houston Baptist fast.
Yes. Which, by the way, are playing tonight. Just throwing that.
But in conference play, they have slowed the pace a little bit, and it's something. While they've slowed the pace, they're actually the number 2 most efficient offense on the road. So their offense works at home or away. They've played well, in both spots. So, it's a dynamic team. And I'll tell you what, Watford's a great player, and Skylar Mays is there, and LSU is just fun to watch if you haven't watched them play.
Yeah, very underrated. LSU, Louisville, a couple of these teams, very long, very athletic. They can shoot. They're efficient. Nobody talks about them, but they are certainly going to be. They're going to be there in the next month. That's for sure. Drew, if you're now, we're going to create a segment on this show called the Late Night Degenerate Special. So I'm going to lean on you to pull out one of these late night games here that for the rest of us that might say, you know what, I wish I had something a little late night to go with that you can pull out for us on the card. I know you got a couple of West Coast games here. UC Riverside, Fullerton, Long Beach State, Cal Poly. So, I'm going to look to you here on future shows to give us this the Degenerate Special.
Oh, I love it. All right, thank you for the opportunity, Joe. The Degenerate Special, it's something every sports bettor out there, at least on the West Coast and some of the East Coast degenerates, really like to get after. I'm just going off the top here. A team that I did spend a little bit of time here, Utah State versus my UNLV running Rebels here. I guess Ralph and I's at home. I'm looking to fade UNLV. I was, just doing a little research here. They are not a depth type of team here going up against Utah State, which Utah State's in revenge. I don't know how much you want to put into that. UNLV knocked them off by almost 20 points. I believe that was the first game of Mountain West play. But coming back here on the road, Logan's not an easy place to play. And quite frankly, UNLV is just not that good. They've kind of gotten some wins here in Mountain West, but you're talking about Wyoming, San Jose State, a New Mexico team without 2 of their best players when they played. They've dropped 3 straight to Nevada, San Diego State, Colorado State. I think Utah State's more in that realm of the Mountain West, and kind of the same profile that y'all were just talking about in terms of when they have to step up in class. UNLV's kind of been blown out. I think that it's a situation like that. Utah State at home. I would lay it here with the favorite in the Degenerate Special on the West Coast tonight, Joe.
Damn you, Drew Martin.
What do you got?
That was my best bet. You slime.
Well, that makes it even better, right?
Way to go.
Let me remind you guys, I enjoyed doing the hell out of this show with these 2 guys from Sports Memo. And before we get the best bets, JR210 is a code for anyone at Sports Memo. We know from WagerTalk and Sports Memo, $9 Monday is such a popular day. People think there's so much value paying $9. You're getting any capper you want for $7 a day, $210 the next 30 days, all sports, all access. That's good through this weekend. Just go to sportsmemo.com. When you click out the 30-day all access, put in the code JR210. It'll take the price down to $210. There's no limit at how many cappers you want. You hear them talk, both of these guys, each day about college hoops. Follow them for 30 days. We don't even have that same special at WagerTalk. It's such a good deal that it's only offered at SportsMemo. Make sure you give it a try.
All right, so let's go. Best bets time here, Ralph. He suckered you right up there. He took your Utah State game, so which is unfortunate, but I got to throw it out there, Ralph. I am shocked. I did not hear a Minnesota play from you tonight at home against a reeling Wisconsin team. For one guy that has backed Minnesota as much as we have on this show, I'm shocked you weren't leaning that way tonight.
You want to talk home road dichotomy. Wisconsin's it, knocking off Michigan State and knocking off Maryland.
Yep.
I still look at where I started the season and how high I had Wisconsin. I didn't have them top 40, but I certainly had them higher than Minnesota. So, it's just a game I couldn't go to. I mean, Minnesota's last 2 losses concerned me. Yep. They're 1-3 their last 4. Their only win was against Ohio State. Yep. Again, losing to Michigan State's not bad. Losing to Illinois is not bad. But those good teams don't lose those multiple games in a row. So, yeah, I agree. I agree that I've been on that Minnesota bandwagon. And don't forget, Minnesota on the road now, when they play Penn State on Saturday, I think they're 219-1 over-under now. Yep. That's off the top of my head. And one of those overs was that double overtime game against Purdue this year. So realistically, in regulation, Joe, like we do our bets.
Oh, God.
Where it's regulation time, where it's a push if it's overtime.
Right.
They would actually be 120 and 1 over, 20 unders, and 1 push. Yeah. So I am going to go to Utah State as my best bet still. And why am I doing that? Well, it's because it is a legitimate play. I already bet it. I'm giving it to my customers. It is part of my all-access package. So I want people to know that I feel it's that strong. The only thing I'm going to add to Drew is Utah State not only with revenge off that UNLV, but they were laying 7.5. So this is really a cheap price. Yeah. This Utah State team was consensus to win the Mountain West. San Diego State's played at an entirely different level, and they're the best team. But this Utah State team is that talented. You're only laying a couple more points than they did on the road. They're also coming all off the loss against San Diego State. And when you look at UNLV shooting, UNLV on the road this year, 38.7%. Utah State's lockdown defense at home, they're allowing 35.4% shooting.
Wow.
I don't think UNLV gets to the mid-50s, where Utah State gets into the 70s.
Love that. All right, so you sticking with Utah State best bet there, Drew?
I'll do it as my degenerate special and tail Ralph there, but best bet, I'm going George Washington versus the Bonnies, St. Bonaventure. 2 300 teams in terms of pace, and George Washington just frankly is not very good at all. I do like St. Bonaventure minus the points. And they're at home. But I think the safer bet, and the one I bet personally, is under 133.5. Both of these two teams, not very good shooting, pretty good on the defensive side, and more importantly, just the pace there. Neither team is going to look to push it. They both have slowed even more in conference play. So I would look for that shot clock to be running pretty much all game long, that game clock getting down 133.5. It's just too high. My numbers have it at 128.5. So a lot of value this point in the season on the under. So George Washington, St. Bonaventure under 133.5 for my best bet, Joe.
Hey, Joe, if I could just jump in with a couple technicals on Drew's play.
Please do.
Drew, George Washington, 2-9 against the spread their last 11 games. George Washington, their last 9 games, 0 overs, 9 under, and a push.
Wow. All right. George Washington, yeah. And home teams are this game's in Bonnie, isn't it, though? So they're 5-1 against the number on the list. I love it. I love the play, man. I think that's we're going to go ahead and play that. I got another one here, Ralph, that it's do or die with me with this damn team because I've won some and I've screamed and yelled and broken things. I love Anthony Edwards This Georgia team, just to me, should have won more games this year than they have. They are on the road at Florida in the Swamp. Road teams in this series, 6-1 against the number over the last 7, Ralph. But to me, I'm looking at this Florida team, and they're 7-19 against the number in their last 26 at home. They're 3-8 against the number in their last 11 at home against teams that actually don't play all that well on the road. I think they've been overvalued all year long. I think they're overvalued again. I may very well have one of, if not the best player in Anthony Edwards on the court here. They're not as bad as their 2-6 record, Ralph. They're just not. Plus, you want to give me almost double digits here? Give me Georgia. I mean, I don't know. Am I crazy? Give me Georgia.
Well, part of the reason Florida is not having ATS success, you look at their lineup. Besides Kerry Blackshear, who's a senior, you have a freshman in Scotty Lewis,
right,
and then you have 3 sophomore. And your tempo is 300.
Mm-hmm.
You're one of the slowest paced teams, and you're laying double digits. Again, I have no problems with that play. I mean, because fundamentally, you have a poor ATS team with a lot of young kids, and you're not getting margin. And now you're laying 9.5 to a rival, and so hey, no issue. It sounds like a great trio of best bets tonight, guys.
That sounds like can you hear that, guys? That's cash. Just make sure it's in regulation, because Ralph's got some sort of messed up rule here about it can only happen in regulation, Drew. Don't make them a bet here and then have to go to over. You don't want none of that. So what you do want to do, though, head over to WagerTalk.com for Ralph, SportsMemo.com. For Drew, you can get every one of his plays 30 days, guys. JR210 right now over at Sports Memo. Use that code. Take advantage of it. Every play, 30 days from Drew there. JR210 over at Sports Memo. So, guys, listen, it's going to be a heck of a card tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. This weekend's going to be huge, too, as well. We'll be back tomorrow. We get to break it all down and do that fun stuff. So, in the meantime, good luck with your plays. And Ralph and Drew, thank you for the time, guys. We'll bust it all down. We'll get to do it all again tomorrow. So good luck to you both, man.
Thanks, guys.
Best of luck, Joe.